You spend hours building and everything seems fine at first. Then your citizens start complaining, the zoning feels random, and the traffic, well, it's a disaster. If you don't have a plan, City Skylines 2 can get frustrating fast. Constant fixes, slow progress, and cities you never finish. This video gives you a step-by-step system to plan your city before you build, so every district, road and railway has a purpose, so you can actually finish a city you're proud of with better traffic, faster growth, and a layout that keeps you excited to build. By the end, you'll have a visual representation of what your city may look like in the future and how you'll link all of these areas together. This is not a resource on road hierarchy or how to micromanage services or transport, but rather it's about showing you how you can create a tool tailored to your needs and your vision today to provide you with a city plan at the very highest level. This plan will serve as a conscious and a subconscious reminder to what you have in mind now on the day of planning. At the end of the video, I'll compare how an initial pre-plan made in February 2024 compares to a city finished 18 months later in August 25. I'll show you a real-life example of how I created a live document that produced a visual representation of all the pre-planning I undertook for their long-running series of Cape Lomond. This city was sustained over a period of 17 months, proving that the method works and it can work for you too. Leonardo da Vinci had the paintbrush, Michelangelo had the chisel. And what did these world-class artists have in common? They had the right tools for the job. Here, I'm going to show you what tools you need to start planning your city. So, on your favourite browser, go to getpaint.net. Just to be clear, it's not paint.net, it's getpaint.net. There's a paid for and a free version. They are exactly the same, so make your choice. I'll have the free one, thanks very much. Now, you don't have to use this one, but it's free, it's simple to use, and this is what the guide is going to be based on. Feel free to use any other image software that you want, just make sure that it supports working in layers. An optional download is to grab a few extra plugins. It's quite a basic piece of software and the plugins just give you extra functionality. For me, I'm going to be looking to get some outlines or drop shadows, and it's going to make things look a little bit more readable come the end of the video. So with the software installed and ready to go, we're going to create a geological map. This is going to give you a quick reference guide in your planning for all the exploitable natural resources in the map, including water and wind direction. And this is the first step in building your multi-layered, easy editable live planning document. So let's jump into the game. We're going to pick a spot we can get most of the map on the screen. We want to hide the UI by clicking the backtick button on the keyboard. There's a few methods of taking a screenshot. F12 I think works on Steam, or you can use your own software, or you can use the photo mode that's in the game. It's entirely up to you, doesn't matter. We're going to take 4 screenshots at this point, one with no UI elements on it whatsoever, one with the water and sewage. Again, just hide the UI and grab that screenshot. Do the same again for air pollution. We're going to grab the wind direction from this one. And a 4th one which will cover our natural resources. If you're using Steam, you can click on View, Screenshots, and then open this folder and your screenshots should all be there. So open over to paint.net. What we're going to do is we're going to grab that folder with the 4 screenshots on it, and we're simply going to select them and we're going to drag them into the paint.net app. Ensure that you click Add Layers. We want these to be showing up individually. And if none of the tools are showing up, just go up to the top right hand corner and make sure that they're all selected. These individual boxes can be moved around, so if they're hiding elements of the screenshot, then you can simply just drag them and drop them over. Now the reason that we're using paint.net and not Microsoft Paint, for example, is that we have access to layers. Feel free to use any software that you want as long as you have that functionality within it. As you'll see here, you can essentially drag and change the order of visibility on these things. The top one will always be the most visible layer and vice versa. You'll also notice that you see a blue box. That blue box is the active layer. So if you are going to be drawing any elements on, it will be drawing onto the element that you have selected, not necessarily the one that's at the top of the list. So we're going to create an overlay here, and for that we're going to click on Add New Layer. We'll get it renamed to something that's appropriate, and I reckon we'll call that Resources for now. As I said earlier on, the highlighted layer is the one that is active, and if you draw anything, that is what you're drawing on. So we're going to be drawing on essentially an empty layer, brand new one, and this will not be changing fundamentally what's on the other layers. So the first thing I'm going to do is just draw over and color code the resources on the map. Let's get this done quickly. Now that that's complete, you'll see that having this layer isn't particularly useful on its own. So we're going to jump into settings and we're going to change the opacity of that particular layer. That'll make sense in a minute. I'm going to change the order of things. I would much rather see the terrain behind this particular UI. So let's get this done and drag that up. And now we can change the opacity and things will start making a little bit more sense. So here we can see the full map, exactly where everything is, and that's going to give us a bit of a basis for drawing out a few networks later on. So let's go ahead and create another layer, and this time we're going to do the wind direction. So new layer again, we'll get that renamed. The wind direction on this map emanates from one spot and it all blows outward from there. So all I'm going to do is just draw a series of arrows, and that's a really easy reminder as to where things are headed. I've just gone ahead and made another layer and I've called it water. And again, same idea as the resources from earlier on. I'm just going to basically just draw these out, and then we'll change the opacity, and then we're going to be left with a specific layer that we'll be able to switch on and off at our will. So just a quick demonstration of what we've done so far. Let's just grab the two resources here, let's switch them on and off, and you can see that they overlap pretty easily, and it's still easy enough to see exactly where everything is on the map. And again, we're going to be building up a few more layers, but that's going to give us the basis to build off for now. In the Hunger Game movies, the nation of Panem is divided into 13 districts, each with a distinct industry and a role in supporting the capital's economy and control. We won't be sending anyone to their death in the games, but we will be drawing inspiration from the 13 districts in the movie. I like to start planning where the capital will be first, that's our downtown, so have a little think how you want the skyline of the city to work and have that first and foremost in your mind. And this is where things get interesting, this is where you can really start plotting out where things are actually going to get built on the map. I knew right from the start that I wanted my downtown to be in this area, and it pretty much that's the way it ended up. I thought potentially maybe two downtowns, one, one really, but kind of stretched over two islands. Didn't quite work out like that. But again, that's not really the point of doing this exercise. This exercise is to kind of keep you on track, really, more so at the beginning of your build. Once you start getting into things, then it really isn't a document that you'll be holding on to at the very end. Things will make sense as you build along, and then you're going to be reacting to different services and different demands and all that sort of stuff. I might estimate that when you're using this document, you might use it for the first, in my context, when I was doing the build, maybe 20 episodes. That might be a couple of weeks for you, or it could be a few months. I'm going to quickly get a few of the main places done. What you will notice is that I'm using one new layer for the areas themselves for the outline, and then I'm using a separate layer for the area names. And again, this is just to help keep things nice and tidy a little bit later on when you want to be able to maybe make it look a little bit less busy and really focus on certain layers and have good visibility of them. Remember that this document is to be a very top level document. It's not going to get into the nitty gritty of exactly where individual things will go. There is a little bit of an add-on that you can do at the end, which we'll discuss at the end of the video, that might help you if you feel that you need it. But this is really about putting the big pieces of the jigsaw out in front and center, and you know exactly what you're going to be building towards. As I said at the beginning, once you have these sort of clear in your mind, the way that they will come together will kind of form naturally, really, once you start building on the map. You should end up getting a little feel for what's going to work in the individual districts. So you might have little pockets of commercial or little pockets of industry. Again, this is just a top line view and it shouldn't be followed to the letter. On to the next step, and we'll start with a question.
What have the Romans ever done for us?
Well, it turns out quite a lot actually. As the Romans expanded their empire through an expansive road network, they employed surveyors to use innovative techniques like contour mapping and the use of meticulous measurements. These methods enabled them to adapt designs accordingly, overcoming obstacles through techniques such as cuttings, embankments, or detours. For our purposes though, we want to use the document we're making to plan out not just the roads, but also the rail networks too. And the obstacles that we need to overcome will not include terrain like the Romans, but the resources that we might want to exploit later, as well as avoiding building the networks through areas that we want to develop and build on. So here you want to have at least two layers, one for rail, one for highway. You might potentially want a separate one for freight rail, but that is entirely up to you. So here we're going to be able to plan around the resources and the terrain on the map. Certain resources I don't want to cut through, and some of them I'm more than happy to cut through, like agriculture for example. But obstacles aside, it does mean that you do have an exact clear plan of exactly where these roads are going to go. I promise you this will absolutely help for traffic planning later on. By default, this is going to show you where your highway interchanges are going to be. Anywhere where highways intersect, that's going to be an interchange. Obviously, service interchanges are a little bit different if you simply just want to take them off the highway network. But again, depending on the detail that you want to go into, you might or might not want to plan that ahead as well. I don't think it's necessary. I'll pretty much kind of deal with that as and when it comes along, but for the highway to highway interchanges, they take up a huge amount of space, and it's super helpful to know exactly where they're going to be before you start building them. And I'll reiterate again, this is just a planning guide for your city. If circumstances dictate that you have to do something else, it's absolutely fine, just go ahead and do it. I'm going to put the rail network in pink. I've put the road highways in black. The next step is optional, but I do recommend it. The beauty of this layered system is that you can create as many layers as you want, and it can include whatever you think might be important for your city. Remember, you can activate and deactivate these layers as you wish, so you're in control of what's shown on the plan at any given time, and you don't need to worry about it looking too busy or it being hard to read. You can make it as simple or as complex, showing only the layer that you want at the click of a button. To help with visibility, I've added in a little drop shadow to these graphics. Again, I just think it makes it look a little bit easier on the eye, and it's easy to kind of separate what's doing what. If you're using some other software that might just be called Outline, or it might be called Stroke instead of Drop Shadow, again, just depends on the software that you're using. So once you have every layer in place and you're happy enough with what you've chosen, you can then customize it a little bit further. Here, I decided to add an extra layer and I called it POIs, points of interest. So big buildings or big developments that I know that I wanted in the map or in the build, and I had a rough idea of where I wanted them. Again, the idea is to put them on a separate layer, so if I want to work on something else or want a little bit better visibility of my networks when I'm building on the map, then I can just uncheck the box and get rid of them. Other examples you might want to try is potentially maybe separating or splitting zones. You might want to create like subzones on a particular layer. So for example, you might want to split up different types of farming, for example, or maybe you want to have different housing densities within a zone, different industrial uses, specialized industries, whatever's important for your build. Again, the idea is that you've got a bit of a reference and a bit of a plan that you can refer to, and again, it's easy enough to remove it from the map when you want to work or you want to focus on something else. So I've gone ahead and taken the liberty of superimposing another screenshot of the finished Cape Lomond build. And here we can compare how the initial plan from a year and a half ago compares to the finished build. So we can see that the main downtown pretty much is where it was planned. The mid-res is perhaps maybe a little north, but it's mostly there. Obviously the airport and the F1 track came into play, and they're quite different than perhaps what I had originally intended. In fact, the airport could never go in that big crater. The crater's completely bugged out. It has real bad graphical glitches when I go in there, so I was never going to build anything in there, in fact. But the farms, university, the hotels, the starting district, and most of the highways have pretty much gone along from the original plan. So by having that plan from the start, you'll obviously be able to refer to it as you build. But not only are you simply just referring to it, you're able to interact with it, you're able to build extra functionality into it as your needs or your goals dictate, and you're able to extract that information easily. That provides you with not only the top line visual plan itself, but it also sparks a visualization of how these elements will link together. And this happens when you're in the game and you're playing out the map. And what you find is that this will happen almost without you thinking about it. Now, you've seen how I plan out a city before I start, but do keep in mind this city will only be as good as the infrastructure you put down. So check out this video where I start a brand new map with a massive infrastructure mega project.